Hello, good morning, namaste. At the outset, I would like to thank the Government First Grade College, Siddharthanagar, Mysore, and especially the convener of this conference, Dr. Siddharamu, for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on the emerging, very important technology, the artificial intelligence. And what I'm going to do today is to give you an overview of what AI is, what is the power of AI, what are its pitfalls, especially some technologies such as the ChatGPT and how it can help students, teachers, and other stakeholders as well. And also talk about the threats, risks and threats of AI in general and including ChatGPT. Let me share with you my agenda. My agenda today is, as I mentioned earlier, talk about the buzz, the AI buzz, the power and pitfalls, and why there is so much of hype and hoopla regarding this technology, and take ChatGPT, as I mentioned before, as an example of AI, and talk about how this ChatGPT can be leveraged in academia, higher education. So, how do we leverage the power of AI? And at the same time, we need to be avoiding the pitfalls. So, the question here is how do we balance the threats and opportunities? That's what I'm going to be focusing on in my talk today. As I said earlier, AI is one of the most important technologies that has emerged in the last couple of years. However, the field of AI is not very new. What used to be called as thinking machines then, they go back to the 1950s. They have become talk of the town only since the last couple of years, and perhaps every day you will see some newspaper or some media talking about AI in some context or the other. So it's garnering a lot of attention since the launch of ChatGPT in November 2022. And it's not just the launch of this technology, but more importantly, what triggered this is the availability, open, freely available ChatGPT that has taken the world by storm. As someone said, AI is coming fast and furious at humanity. So, first, let us learn a little bit about what is AI. AI is nothing but the simulation of human intelligence and its processes by machines, especially computer systems. AI is, in a way, machines' ability to perform the cognitive functions that we normally associate with human beings. AI is also a wide ranging branch of computer science that is concerned with building smart machines capable of tasks, performing tasks that typically require human intelligence. That's why it's called artificial intelligence. Why has it become the talk of the town? I'm going to quote two important personalities about the importance of AI. I'm sure all of you have heard of the great physicist Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking said in the year 2017, just before his death, that success in creating effective AI could be the biggest event in the history of our civilization or the worst. We just do not know. So we cannot know if we will be infinitely helped by AI or ignored by it and sidelined or conceivably destroyed by it. So this statement by Stephen Hawking tells you about both the power or the positive side of AI as well as the negative or the danger lurking behind AI. Because as he said, it could be the biggest event in our civilization, in the history of our civilization, or it could be even the worst. Another very well-known author, historian, Yuval Noah Harari, in the year 2023 in his book, says AI has hacked the operating system of human civilization. So, in other words, it's basically hacking our systems. Yuval Noah Harari wrote a book, very popular book called Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. So, in this book, he mentions about the heralding or the emergence of cognitive revolution. So, according to him, he traces the starting of the cognitive revolution to some 70,000 BC. That is when human beings, that is Homo sapiens, started to develop this faculty of imagination. So, that was our first milestone in our cognitive revolution. Then the second milestone was somewhere around 10,000 year BCE, which was the starting of the agricultural revolution. Then the next milestone, according to Harari, is in the Christian era 34, which is, he calls it as the unification of humankind, the gradual consolidation of human political organizations toward one global empire. Then the fourth one is the scientific revolution, the development of modern science, somewhere in the 16th century, to be exact, 1543 CE. So, having categorized the cognitive revolution that started some 70,000 and odd years ago, he says that this is how the human beings, Homo sapiens, have evolved. So, the question before us is now, today, when we are at the cusp of the impact of AI, are we looking at the heralding of the next cognitive revolution? That is AI going to herald the next cognitive revolution? The reason being, see, one of the important human intelligence aspect is our ability for abstraction. If you look at one thing and learn something from it, we are able to abstract the knowledge or learning and apply it to various other areas, not necessarily limited to that particular area. So that is what is known as the abstraction or the ability to abstract or abstract thinking. Abstract thinking means that that's not directly related to some physical objects or experiences, which normally that is the capability or the limitation of the capability of animals. So today, AI uses computing capabilities to go near this ability of abstraction. However, some believe that it might not be the actual next cognitive revolution because AI and the human brain works in very different ways. They are different engines. Whereas human brain is an analog engine, the computer or the artificial intelligence is actually a very different machine or a engine. It's a digital engine. What it means is that human brain is very slow, but it can do this abstraction or abstractive thinking, whereas computer brain or artificial intelligence is very fast, and then it can do things in nanoseconds. Yuval Harari has actually written another book, the title of which is Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow. That is, he's looking at what tomorrow would look like. And in this book, he actually puts forth the argument that there is this possibility of human beings losing control and algorithm, that is computer algorithms, taking over. There are so many books on AI. Everyone is talking about, how it's going to herald a new era or a new epoch. This is another book by Kissinger and others, which I have just given a reference to. So that is where we are at today. The question is whether artificial intelligence is going to, in one sense, if not replace, but sideline human intelligence. That is, we are going to lose control and machines are going to take control. That is the first important concern or the risk or the danger of AI, loss of human control. See, today, whatever technologies that we have that is there at our beck and call and command, they are all in our control. If I want to, I can start something, I can stop something, I can control it. But once artificial intelligence reaches a level where it can or it will take control, then we lose control. That's the biggest risk. Another important risk related to this is the autonomous weapons. It's already been tested by US Defense Department. You have, killer drones, and then it actually has the ability to kill obstacles. But it can also overtake the control and then kill the human being who's controlling the algorithms of the machines. That's why the second important danger that everybody is worried about is the deployment of autonomous weapons. The third, very important, very significant concern and risk is misinformation and disinformation. We're all familiar today that, everywhere when you read something, you first have to worry about whether it is factually correct or it's a fake thing. So that's why every day we are always involved in fact checking. Whether it is newspapers or other media, they have a now separate department called fact checking, or trying to find out whether the information that they have got, including the images, the videos that they have got, whether they are real or actually configured in the sense misinformation or disinformation. And of course, the fourth one is the security risks, because we all are familiar with the problems of cybersecurity issues, how it can be hacked. And of course, the fifth one is the most immediate one, especially for younger generation. That is about the how AI can replace human beings, and then we are going to lose our jobs. So I'm going to quickly touch upon the evolution of AI, because as I said before, AI is not very new. It started almost 60 years back in the 1950s. So even though it started in 1950s, it took so long for it to reach this level where we are worried about AI taking control of the human civilization itself. So some people trace it to the year 1949, when this book, Giant Brains or Machines That Think, that is, as I said before, thinking machines, were thought about. Then the important milestone is 1950, when the very famous computer scientist Alan Turing published the book Computer Machinery and Intelligence, which proposed actually a test for human intelligence. Okay, that's why Turing test, as they call it, as that's one of the important tests that are used to see whether we have reached that stage. So like this, I'm not going to deal with all of this different milestones. They're here for you to just glimpse. So these are some of the important milestones. Except in the year 1955, for the first time at a workshop, the term artificial intelligence was used. So if you want to trace the evolution of AI, you can go to 1949, when thinking machines were, which is something like the idea of intelligent machines, were thought about. And then, Turing developed the Turing test in 1950, or the usage of the term artificial intelligence, it goes back to 1955. Then since then, there has been, steady development in the field of AI. So we have now reached this stage of AI from 1950s to the current. The differences in the early stages, the first 2-3 decades, the focus or the development or the algorithms that were being developed, they were based on actually different kind of a logic, what is known as the logic of reasoning, symbolic logic or symbolic reasoning. But today, since the 1990s, the approach has shifted to what's known as the data or the big data, or availability of big data, humongous data. You must have heard of the term big data in different contexts. That enabled the development of the new approach, that is the new approach using machine learning. Because you have so much data, machines can use the data to learn and then develop the intelligence. Let me just briefly tell you there are three categories of AI, which are referred to as weak, strong, and super. So weak intelligence is also known as the artificial narrow intelligence. Artificial general intelligence, that is AGI, is known as the strong AI. And then you have the third, the final stage, you can call it as artificial super intelligence. See, ANI, that is artificial narrow intelligence, is when a computer or a system is designed to perform a single task, and any knowledge gained from that task, that is from completing that task, will be applied only, it can apply only to that particular task, nothing beyond it. Whereas the artificial general intelligence can mimic human brain or human intelligence and behavior, and it has the ability to learn and apply its intelligence to solve any problem. The intelligence that's gained in one can be applied to other areas. So, in other words, artificial general intelligence can think, understand, and act in a way that is indistinguishable from human beings. Then, of course, there is this third stage called the super intelligence or artificial super intelligence. Okay. So today we have technologies. We are already using such technologies. Say, for example, self-driving cars. Self-driving cars are already deployed. Similarly, drones are already deployed. They are all still examples of what is known as narrow intelligence or narrow artificial ANI. Okay. So we haven't still, according to many people, we haven't still reached the stage of artificial general intelligence. However, some people believe that we have already reached the artificial general intelligence. What we are going to see is probably the artificial super intelligence. The ASI, one very well-known Oxford professor by name Nick Bostrom, who has written a couple of books, he first used the word super intelligence or artificial super intelligence. So he defined this also in his book. This is the book that he wrote, Nick Bostrom wrote, Super Intelligence, Paths, Dangers, and Strategy. So in this book, which is a bestseller, in fact, New York Times bestseller, he talks about what are the ways we get reach this stage, what are the dangers lurking behind them, and what strategies we need to develop in order to avoid these dangers. Then recently, he has written another book, which is published very recently in 2024. He called, the title of the book is Deep Utopia, Life and Meaning in a Solved World. What he talks about in this is, he looks at the positive side of AI. Just imagine that if we are able to manage the path of AI in such a way that it doesn't go wrong, as he had talked about in his previous book, but we are able to develop responsible, safe super intelligence, and then we are able to govern it well. What could be the scenario? And that's a utopian scenario where nobody need to work. We have everything. We have solved most of the problem. That's why he says solved world. We have solved almost all problems of the world through AI. So we are here at a stage where we are probably going to be solving all our problems through AI. No one need to work, and then we can just sit and enjoy life in a very meaningful way, depending on what we want to do. That's what he talks about in the Deep Utopia. So having given you a sense of the broad area of AI, types of AI, as well as some of the risks and dangers and the possibilities, endless possibilities behind AI. Now I will take the example of one particular AI, one particular example of AI, that is Chat GPT. The Chat GPT, how it's actually shaping the current thinking. Chat GPT, I'm sure many of you have already used Chat GPT. As I mentioned before, Chat GPT was being developed by many people, but a company called OpenAI was developing this. And then in November of year 2022, just hardly 2 years back, or less than 2 years back, actually 1.5 years back, it released the ChatGPT 3.5 version. And this, that is the release or launch of this ChatGPT 3.5 and making it open, that is freely available to everyone to test, to use, etc., actually kick-started this, you can say, this, hype and hoopla about AI. Everybody, that's why it became the talk of the town, because today everybody is talking about using as well as worrying about the dangers that lurk behind AI or ChatGPT, for example. So let's try to understand, if you have not used ChatGPT, what is ChatGPT? See, the premise here is ChatGPT is a tool that helps professionals in all fields to improve their productivity, to do things better, whatever they are doing. Whether you are a doctor or a teacher or whoever, engineer, you can do things better with the help of Chat GPT or AI in general. That's the premise. So this is a technology which is going to transform higher education, especially in terms of both research and teaching. The reason is ChatGPT deals primarily with text. Okay. So because in higher education or scholarship or scholarly literature, we are talking about text. So this transformative technology, it can change the ways in which we are going to be using this technology and applying it for our daily work. So here, what AI can or ChatGPT can do is it can actually assist us in variety of ways. One of the important things that it can do is it can process and analyze large amounts of data, which is the basic foundation of any research. You collect data and that data needs to be processed and analyzed. So naturally that particular step of research process is now become very, very easy. Now, the another part of research is doing this comprehensive literature review. We all, as part of our PhD, our research, etc., we do literature review. AI, especially ChatGPT, can help us in doing that. ChatGPT or AI can also help us in designing experiments and assisting reports. You can write easily reports. So it can help us in generating ideas. It can help us in citation management. It can help us in, as I said before, various ways, particularly the tonality. You can make it work according to the way you want to write. That is in your own style of writing. Okay. I have given here some examples of how ChatGPT can be used. See, I just gave, because I was giving this talk on AI and higher education, balancing threats and opportunities. I said, this is the talk I'm giving. Can you suggest a good title? As you can see here, it has given me some options about what other titles I can come up with. So it can help you in refining your title. For example, it can also help you in actually expanding your ideas. Supposing, for example, I have given here one prompt. I'm writing a book on decoding disinformation, psychology, economics, and technology. Can you give me a chapter outline for this book? As you can see, it has very easily given me these ideas for chapters. What are the various chapters that I can write for this book? So, for example, I asked ChatGPT that can you give me some very good examples of successful deployment of ChatGPT in academic writing? So it has given all this idea generation and brainstorming, language enhancement. Say I can ask ChatGPT, I have written something, maybe my language or my English isn't that great. I want to use ChatGPT to refine it or enhance it. So I can use it for language enhancement. I can use it to summarize. Say I can give some 5 pages or 50 pages and ask ChatGPT to summarize it. So like this, there are various ways ChatGPT can be used in higher education. Idea generation, as I mentioned here. See, I have given some examples of, again, in some area, prosopography is one area that I'm working on. I said, can you give me some ideas about what are the various areas of research that I can work in this space? So like this, AI can help us, ChatGPT particularly, can help us in diverse ways. Now, let's briefly spend a few minutes only on understanding AI a little bit more. As you can see in the screen, AI encompasses, or the larger field is known as AI, and within this is the field of machine learning. Remember, when I was telling about shifts in AI, I said machine learning is one of the major shifts. So, in its method or approach towards developing AI, the methodology changed from symbolic logic to data or machine learning. Then, within that machine learning, the further development was the development of deep learning. So machine learning and deep learning have actually transformed AI. So I have tried to give what exactly is ChatGPT, what is the technology that is used. The technology behind ChatGPT is what is known as LLM, that is large language models. So these are some of the technologies that have been used in AI and especially ChatGPT. ChatGPT, another term for ChatGPT is a proper noun, as in it's used by OpenAI. Generative AI is a noun. So generative AI is a technology which uses deep learning, especially a particular type of deep learning called the generative adversarial networks, GANs, to create new content. See, remember, knowledge creation or academic work is all about creating new knowledge, right? Or new content. So imagine a world where you can use this generative AI to create new knowledge. And especially, just to give an idea of how it's going to change the world, is there are essentially two types of neural networks that are used in this GAN technology, that is adversarial network technology. That is a generator that creates new data and a discriminator that evaluates the data. That means within GAN, there are methods to generate new data and methods to actually evaluate that new data, which means it is self-learning. It is self-evaluating and improving itself. So I mentioned about deep learning and I also mentioned about machine learning. I will just simply say what is the main difference between deep learning and machine learning. Machine learning was developed earlier based on what is normally referred to as structured data. Structured data, in order to understand very simply, is nothing but data which is presented in, for example, in a table form, which means that now there is a label which says what data is there, for example, name. So it gives the names of people, Shalini Aras, Siddharamu, Lingaraju, etc. That means you know that Siddharamu is the name of a person. Shalini Aras is the name of a person. Then let's say it gives the age. So the age of Siddharamu is this. The age of Shalini Aras is this. So that data is structured data. We know what it is. That is when machine learning was developed and was using structured data. However, in deep learning, which is the next stage in machine learning, the main advancement was it can handle unstructured data. Unstructured means natural language data, such as sentences and text, etc. So basically, machine learning algorithms use, as I said, leverage structured label data to make predictions, whereas deep learning has developed so many layers of this learning algorithm, it can only do the labeling itself. So that is the main difference. In machine learning, there is a process called, you have data that has to be, a feature of that data has to be extracted, and that feature extraction in machine learning stage is done by human beings, whereas in deep learning, it is also done, that classification or feature extraction is done by machines. That's the main difference. In deep learning, one of the important methods of deep learning, which is also referred to as artificial neural network, ANN, okay? So basically, ANN is somewhere, it tries to, in one sense, mimic the neurological network of human brain. That's why it's called a neural network. So it mimics that, tries to think the way in which we also think. Okay. So basically, these artificial neural networks mimic the human brain through a combination of data inputs, the weights that are given. Weights means the importance that is given to that data and some of the biases that are inbuilt into that. So these work together to actually very accurately recognize. So suppose you see something, let us say, just to give a simple example, let us say you throw images of dogs, for example, a machine should be able to recognize, and this is a dog, label it as a dog. And not only just dog, it can also label it as, for example, whether the dog is running dog or stationary, etc. That is classification. So recognition, classify, and describe the objects within the data. So that's what actually deep learning is. Very simply put, that's what deep learning is. So deep learning is what is now actually behind or transforming the AI technology. There are various types of artificial neural networks. I'm just giving you a list here. I'm not going to the details of that. Okay. Now, I mentioned earlier large language models. Large language model, that is the technology behind ChatGPT, basically uses the same deep learning technologies or techniques for massively large data sets, textual data sets. See, why this is possible today is, as you know, somewhere in 1990s, the internet developed. Along with that, the web developed. With web, there is humongous data in addition to what people are writing here and there. It books, articles, Wikipedia, all these things have emerged. Wikipedia is one of the largest encyclopedias, which is updated every minute, right? So new content. So there is humongous amount of textual corpora that's available. And using deep learning techniques, that text data that's available behind the internet and behind all these books and journals, articles, etc., are being used to develop the large language models. And using these large language models, especially a technology called the natural language processing approach. Remember, I mentioned about two types of data, structured data and unstructured data. Unstructured data, that is natural language data, sentences and words and things that we use. In order to handle that, a technology called the natural language processing technology has been used, which is essentially based on computational linguistics. Okay, this rule-based modeling of human language with statistical machine learning and deep learning models has been able to help us with this new tool called the generative AI or the ChatGPT. That's why it has become the what is known as the ChatGPT 3.5 version, which I said, which was released in November 2022. Now, of course, 0.4 and actually 4.0 is also, just yesterday, there was this announcement that 4.0 or Omni is available freely for everybody. Till now, it was only 3.5 that was available openly or freely. Now, 4.0 is also available openly and freely. So the threat behind this is tools such as ChatGPT threaten transparent science. That is, we don't know how it is doing all that transformation inside. That's where the problem is. I'll just give you another example of how ChatGPT came about. See, many of us, all of us have rather used Google, and we have used one feature of this, see what is called as the query auto completion. You start typing, Google itself gives you prompts about what could be the next word, etc. I've given you an example here. Who is the prime minister? As you can see in this particular example, first it gives Canada, Australia, etc. The reason is when I prepared this slide, I was in the US. So naturally it picks up that knowledge, that information that I'm sitting in US and querying, and naturally it tries to give a more probably, that is, it predicts that I'm interested in Canada because I'm in North America, right? So they are basically helped by this law, that is ChatGPT is essentially helped by large language models such as this. So large language models is again a very useful, important, fast developing technology, which basically does text mining and other information extraction techniques, uses it for many applications such as part of speech, tagging, automatic text generation, machine translation, and all of this. So remember, translation is another important work that we do in academic or higher education. So all this is handled by ChatGPT today. So in order to get a sense of how fast this technology is developing, that's where even the promise as well as the danger lies. Okay, is you get a sense of it by what are the responses that we get. Let us say, can you tell me how AI can help scientific research? Okay, it's also telling me all of that, how it can help. So that means, my work can be simplified by using these prompts. So how is it possible? You can just have a sense of how ChatGPT has developed so fast during the last couple of years. Okay. You can see here parameters that are used for this language models in ChatGPT, that is GPT-4, is 1 trillion. GPT-3, it was 175 billion. Before that, it was 17 billion. So you can see how fast it is. That's why it's a fast and furious. It's growing. Okay. See, for example, I will give you another example how ChatGPT can be used. I'm doing a project on digital twin. See, what earlier I used to do is, my general approach was, I would either Google or Google Scholar about some information that I wanted about understanding digital twin. So I would Google and it will give me these results, right? And I would go to one particular reference given there. I'll get that details and go to the next. I'll find references there and I will use that also. Like this, I would use. Today, what I do, I ask ChatGPT. Now, if you ask me, what I'm going to do today is both. I will use Google also, I will use other approaches, as well as I will use ChatGPT. So there are myriad ways that you can use ChatGPT for higher education, which I have already mentioned, but I have just summarized here. Just to end my talk, I'm summarizing some of the uses of ChatGPT: language translation, automated summarization, question answering, etc. Now, to conclude, I just want to highlight how, in general, not just ChatGPT, but how AI can be deployed in higher education. One of the important ways that AI can be deployed is personalized learning. See, in the traditional learning, a teacher comes and teaches 50 or 60 or 70 students in a class at the same level. Whereas if you use AI, the learning can be adaptive. So it can understand the needs of the individual learner and personalize the space, personalize the content, etc., according to the needs of the individual learner. That's called personalized learning. You can make learning more personalized. Intelligent tutoring systems. With the help of all this technology, it can help give feedbacks to students. Wait, here is where you are going wrong. This is not right, etc. Then another area is predictive analytics. That is identify, for example, it can predict early on who are the students who are lagging behind, who are not catching up with what is happening, etc. And that's predictive analytics can be used. And of course, grading, that is assessment, is one of the bane of teachers. We hate doing this grading. However, that's an important part of our work. We have to do it. So automatic grading, you give the answers to the AI, it will grade. Are you students out there? Are you threatened by this? I would be threatened because I don't know how it is graded, right? Then you, of course, many of you might be already using in different contexts the chatbots and virtual assistants. Higher education also can make use of this. And I have already mentioned how AI can be used in research and data analysis. Today, humongous amount of data can be submitted to the AI systems, and then we can get the results immediately, almost immediately, and all analyzed. So that is the power of AI. It can also be used for curriculum planning and optimization. See, once upon a time, if I have to develop some new syllabus or curriculum for a course, I had to do a long research, go and search the web for different universities having programs, curriculum, download them, analyze. Today, you can ask the ChatGPT or any AI systems to say that take the curriculum on AI of these top 10 universities and give me an integrated AI syllabus which covers most of this. So it will give you that curriculum. So in so many ways, even in administration, such as student recruitment, admissions, AI can be used. Now, when it comes to threats, as I already mentioned, job displacement is one serious threat. And the other serious threat is privacy and data security. And another important risk, which I had not mentioned before, is the digital divide. So just like any technology, people who have the technology, who are already ahead, will use them and stay ahead. Whereas those who are lagging behind, because they don't have access, they don't know how to use it, they will continue to be lagging behind. It gives an opportunity to leapfrog into the future, but for some, not for everybody. That's why it's called the problem or the risk of digital threat or digital divide. Sorry. See, the other thing is the ethical concerns, which I have not highlighted much. So that means, students can just ask ChatGPT to write an essay and submit that essay as that. That's why, academia is also trying to develop ways of not asking questions about what can be answered by ChatGPT. The other concern is that we are going to be dependent too much on technology. Already we know. I'll give you one example. Phone numbers. Today, we cannot remember, we don't even remember more than one or two phone numbers. I can tell you some 25 years back, I could easily remember the phone numbers of all of our phone numbers of many people. So, having talked about various aspects of ChatGPT, I also want to end with why it gets wrong. Why it gets wrong? It's like, imagine ChatGPT chops up the you can call it as the salad shooter. That's what the example or the analogy given by Windsurf, considered as the father of the internet, to talk about this, why generative AI or chat GPT gets it wrong. Okay. So the reason is it chops up the text or the content, mixes it up and shoots it in different directions. Sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it gets it wrong. So that's why Windsurf, in a recent interview with me, I did an interview of Windsurf. He said that it's like a salad shooter. Sometimes it gets it wrong, sometimes it gets it right. So with this, I would like to just say that, end my talk saying that AI or ChatGPT in particular is a great, powerful tool to assist us. As long as we ensure that it is only assisting us, as long as we ensure that we are responsible enough to follow the ethical guidelines in the use of ChatGPT or in the use of AI. As long as it is used for good, it's good. As long as it's used by bad actors, whether it is, for example, defense systems, automated weapon, then it's going to create havoc. And once we lose control of any of these artificial intelligence system, there is this existential threat to humanity. That's what everybody is concerned about. Thank you so much for this opportunity.